If you've spent enough time deep diving into money and investing, there's a good chance you've heard of this term. Tax loss harvesting. Sounds fancy, right? Financial gurus talk about it like it's the ultimate secret cheat code for your tax bill. There are whole threads on personal finance forums treating it as a mark of a sophisticated investor. And financial advisors and robo-advisory firms advertise it as a means to supercharge your portfolio growth. It sounds genuinely good, right? Something that we should all learn and do if we want to really optimize our finances. Well, here's the issue. Me personally, I don't think it holds up to the hype. Now, I'm not saying outright you should completely ignore tax loss harvesting because the principles behind it are real, and when done right, it is a legitimate way to save real money on taxes. But what I'm saying is that we shouldn't get carried away by the hype. It is not some secret cheat code, it is not a mark of a sophisticated investor, and it definitely shouldn't be the reason you decide to sign up with a financial advisor or a robo-advisor. So with that, in today's video, I'm going to make an unpopular argument that tax loss harvesting is not all that it's cracked out to be. That for many, if you're already following a simple investing strategy based on proven foundations, you actually don't need to spend too much of your precious time worrying about it. And in case you're new to the channel, my name is Tay from Financial Tortoise, where we learn to grow our wealth slow and steady. Before we get into the meat of the argument, why I think tax loss harvesting is overrated, let's quickly cover what it actually is so we're working from the same page. Let's first discuss tax loss harvesting 101. In concept, tax loss harvesting actually feels quite simple. Tax loss harvesting. You're taking a loss, something going down in value, and harvesting it, meaning you're pulling something useful out of it the same way you harvest a crop. The useful thing you're pulling out here is a tax benefit. Let's take a look at an example. Let's say you bought $10,000 of a total US stock market fund, VTI, VTSAX, or FSKAX. But because the market drops, your $10,000 suddenly becomes $8,000. At this moment, you have what's called an unrealized loss. It's $2,000 down, but as far as the IRS is concerned, that loss doesn't exist yet. It's just a number on the screen. You haven't done anything with it. So then how to harvest this loss? Let's go through step by step. Step 1 to harvesting the loss. You sell it. Because the moment you sell, that $2,000 loss becomes real, or realized in tax language. You can now actually use it. Step 2. But you don't want to just sit on that cash. Then your money isn't invested working for you. So what you do is immediately take that $8,000 and buy something similar. An S&P 500 fund or a large cap fund instead of your total market fund. Different fund, but it still gives you roughly the same exposure to the US stock market. This step matters because without it, harvesting a loss would just mean pulling your money out of the market every time it dropped. You want to stay invested while at the same time booking that loss. Step 3, time to harvest. Now, you can use that $2,000 loss, and here's the order that you can follow. First, cancel out any capital gain you had somewhere else that year. Say you sold a different investment for a $2,000 profit. The loss wipes that profit out completely. If you don't have a gain, or if there's anything left over after canceling one out, it can lower a portion of your regular taxable income instead. But it doesn't stop there. If you still have losses remaining because you can't use it all up in that single year, it carries forward to the future years, for as long as it takes to use them up. Sounds pretty nice, right? And even the process seems quite simple at first glance. You sell the loser to make the loss real, you buy something similar to stay invested, then you use a loss to offset a gain or your income. Why wouldn't everybody do this, you might be thinking? And this is exactly why the pitch works, and why so many people talk about it like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But as you will see here in a bit, when we dig into details, it isn't as rosy as everyone makes it out to be. Additionally, it shouldn't be approached lightly, because if not careful, it could create a lot more pain than the gains that it supposedly delivers. So with that, let me go over 5 major issues I see with tax loss harvesting that should give most investors a pause before attempting it. Issue number 1. Let's start with the reward itself. Despite all the fanfare around tax loss harvesting, the actual rewards are quite modest. If you don't have capital gains to offset this year, the most you can deduct against your ordinary income is $3,000 annually. That is it. And interestingly, that number hasn't changed since Jimmy Carter was president. It's never been adjusted for inflation, so its real value has been quietly shrinking over the past many decades. And let's put an actual number on what $3,000 is worth. At a 12% marginal tax rate, that deduction saves you $360 a year. At a more typical 24% bracket, it's $720. And even at the top federal bracket, 37%, the savings come out to $1,100. Now, $700 or $1,100 is not nothing, but it is nowhere near the tens of thousands that a lot of marketing around tax loss harvesting promises. Additionally, according to data, this is a typical outcome for most people, not just a worst case scenario. IRS data shows more than 90% of individual taxpayers report zero net capital gains in a given year. That means for the majority of the people, there is no large capital gain sitting around for a harvested loss to wipe out. The 360 to 720 to 1100 range that we just calculated isn't just the floor. For most people, it's the entire payoff. Alright, but you might be saying, I don't mind that the benefit is only around $1,000. That is still something to me, so I think it is worth considering. Fair enough. Then let's get into the actual mechanics required to pull this off. Issue number 2, the execution can become complex very fast. Yes, on surface, the general concept around tax loss harvesting feels relatively simple. You sell an investment at a loss, you buy something similar to stay invested, then you harvest the loss to minimize taxes. Easy enough, right? Well, not so fast. There are specific rules that we have to adhere to when executing these steps, and the main rule governing all of this is called the wash sale rule. The IRS says you can't buy back the same investment or anything substantially identical within 30 days before or after you sold it at a loss. Break that, and the loss gets disallowed entirely. And here's where the wash sale rule can start to get really messy in practice. The rule doesn't just apply to the account where you made the trade. It covers everything you or your spouse own. Your taxable account, your IRA, your 401k. So if you sell your total market fund in your taxable account to harvest a loss, and 2 weeks later, your 401k automatically buys the same fund on payday, you triggered a wash sale rule without you even realizing. Same thing if your dividends are set to automatically reinvest into the fund that you just sold. And again, this is in any account, including the ones you don't check often, like your spouse's IRA. There's also a quieter trap buried here involving dividends. If you don't hold a fund for at least 60 days around the time it pays a dividend, that dividend loses its favorable tax treatment and gets taxed as ordinary income instead. So if you're harvesting losses around a fund's dividend schedule, you can end up owing more in extra dividend tax than you save from the loss itself. As you can obviously see, if you're a lover of automation like I am, you can immediately see the complication this creates. If you're contributing to your investments automatically every payday, which I highly advocate for, you're now fighting your own automation system every time you try to harvest a loss. You have to continuously turn off and on your automatic contribution in order to execute the perfect tax loss harvesting. Personally, I'm not sure I can even trust myself to avoid a mistake in this process. But let's say that you do execute everything correctly. The complication doesn't just end there. There's the additional paperwork, thread of paperwork that can extend for decades. Any loss you don't use this year carries forward, which means you have to correctly report that carry forward balance on your tax return every single year until it's used up. Mislabel it, forget it, or switch tax software and lose the thread, and you can end up either losing track of a benefit you're actually entitled to, or worse, overclaiming something you're not. Alright then, you might be thinking, fine, I'll just pay someone else, a financial advisor or a robo-advisor to handle all this for me. I've seen the ads everywhere. They can handle all these execution complexity for me. Automatic solution, right? Well, maybe or maybe not, which leads to the next issue. Issue number 3. Outsourcing the execution can be a solution, but it is not an automatic solution. Because what comes with additional services? Additional cost. So you have to do some math before accepting the trade. A common robo-advisor fee runs around 0.25% annually. On a $500,000 portfolio, that's about $1,200 a year. On a $2 million portfolio, that's $5,000 a year. If the tax loss harvesting service only saves a few $100s, maybe up to $1,000 a year, you're not coming out ahead. You're paying $5,000 to save $1,000 and calling it optimization. Additionally, you have to ask, are these firms even doing this well? As you saw earlier, there are a lot of moving pieces that need to be managed well with tax loss harvesting. The wash sale risk, the dividend timing issue, the account coordination problem, etc. So in order to do this well and ensure that you stay compliant, the tax loss harvesting service needs visibility into everything you and your spouse owns, including a 401k that might sit with a different provider or a Roth IRA that is housed with a different investment firm. What if you forget to link all your accounts? Or you don't feel comfortable sharing visibility into everything you own? Then now, that responsibility falls on you. And this issue isn't just hypothetical. The SEC sanctioned Wealthfront in 2018 for promising to monitor all client accounts for watch sales and failing to actually do it. Over 3 years, watch sales showed up at least 31% of the accounts enrolled in that exact service. Bottom line, it's easy to believe that paying someone else to handle this whole process will mitigate all the problems that we covered earlier. However, as you see here, I'm not sure if that assumption holds up as well as it sounds. You're paying a fee to make this someone else's problem, but it could end up landing back on your lap as a bigger problem later. By the way, this whole $5,000 to save $1,000 math I just walked through isn't just a made-up example. It's worth checking against your own numbers. So I built a free investment fee analyzer for exactly this. Plug in what you're actually paying, whether that's a 0.25% robo-advisor fee or a 1% advisor fee or anything in between, and see exactly how much it's costing you compared to a plain index fund like VTI, both this year and over the next 30 years. The tool is completely free and available for you to access in the description below. Just my small gift to you for taking your precious time to watch my videos. And if you want to take this further and get personalized guidance in your own situation, whether that's figuring out if a robo-advisor's fee is actually worth it, how to structure your own accounts, or how to build your own path to financial independence, that's exactly what the Financial Tortoise community is for. It's a private membership community where you get access to one-on-one coaching with me, live Q&A calls, and a custom AI assistant trained on all my teachings, available 24/7. However, enrollment is limited and only opens a few times a year. So head over to financialtortoise.com/community to join the waitlist and get priority access when doors open again. I'll have the link in the description below. Alright, with that, back to the video. Issue number 4. You're delaying, but not eliminating. This one is not obvious at first glance, so let me explain. When people talk about tax loss harvesting, many make it seem like you're just outright eliminating taxes. Because you're taking advantage of some fancy loophole, you're magically making taxes disappear. But when you actually look at what is happening in detail, what you'll notice is not really elimination. It's deferral. When you sell your losing investment, you're not just capturing a loss out of the thin air. You're also resetting your cost basis. Remember our total market fund example? You bought it at $10,000, it dropped to $8,000, and you sold it there. And now you take that same $8,000 and buy a different fund. Your new cost basis on that replacement fund isn't $10,000 anymore. It's $8,000, whatever you actually paid for it. So fast forward a few years. That replacement fund recovers and grows, and eventually you sell it for, say, $15,000. Your taxable gain is not calculated off your original $10,000 investment. It's calculated off your new, lower cost basis of $8,000. That means you're now paying capital gains tax on a $7,000 gain instead of a $5,000 gain, $2,000 more. In a way, tax loss harvesting, because of the lower cost basis, is more like an interest-free loan from the IRS. Yes, it does create value. Getting to use money today instead of later is worth something. But a loan is still a loan, and for most people, at some point, that loan comes due. Issue number 5. This is my personal favorite. It leads to a messier portfolio. I don't know about you, but I love simplicity. I love having a simple wardrobe, I love having a simple haircut, and I love having a simple life. Thus, of course, I would love having a simple investment portfolio. Well, one of the natural consequences of tax loss harvesting is that it quietly works against that. Every time you harvest a loss, you have to buy something different. Remember the earlier example? When you sell your total market fund, you can't buy another total market fund. You have to buy something different like a S&P 500 fund or a large cap fund. So picture what this does to a portfolio over several years of harvesting. You started with one clean total market fund, but now you're holding that fund, plus an S&P 500 fund, plus a large cap fund, plus maybe some other funds, each one picked up during a different swap. What was supposed to be a simple, low-maintenance portfolio slowly turns into a small collection of overlapping funds that all do roughly the same thing. And this cuts against one of my core beliefs when it comes to investing: simplicity. Simplicity is one of the most important principles to successful investing. Why? Because with a simple portfolio, you have fewer things to keep track of, fewer moving parts, and fewer things to manage. Your brain doesn't get split into multiple different directions, trying to understand for the 5th time, why do I have the S&P 500 fund and the large cap fund here? Oh yeah, I did that tax loss harvesting a couple years ago. For me, when I log into my investment accounts, I want to see one fund, maybe 2 or 3 at most, that I completely understand and that's playing a clear, distinct role. When we're obsessed about constantly trying to execute tax loss harvesting, our portfolio becomes messier as a natural byproduct. Personally, I'm not a big fan of that. Simplicity has a way of improving performance by enabling us to better understand what we're doing. Alright, so in conclusion, what's my final take on tax loss harvesting? Yes, tax loss harvesting is real and it can work. I'm not telling you that it's a scam, and I'm not telling you never to do it. If you feel like you can get genuine benefit from it, and you don't mind navigating the complexity that I just laid out, please go right ahead. However, don't get sucked into the hype that it is an essential component to successful investing, because that it is not. At best, it is a supplemental strategy to mitigate taxes, but that is all it is. The strategy will not make you suddenly rich or financially independent. That is just great marketing at work. What will make you truly wealthy in the long run comes from the fundamentals: investing more, broadly diversifying, and playing the long game. So focus on the big levers before you get distracted by the shiny small stuff like tax loss harvesting. Thank you guys for watching, and in the line of investing fundamentals, if you want to learn what I consider core investing principles to maximize returns, please check out my video here. Until next time, all the best.